Welcome, friends, to Reality Test. What is reality testing, you may ask? Well, it's something we all do every day, maybe with our loved ones over dinner, with coworkers at the water cooler, etc., when we check our subjective or personal emotions, thoughts, and so forth against objective or sort of more agreed upon fact-based reality. Although, because Dr. Ray and I, Dr. Kay, are social constructionists, we don't actually believe there's one true objective reality, but rather our own personal versions of it constructed in the context of relationships. But you get the idea. So here in Reality Test, we're going to be testing the castmate realities and the producer antics of our favorite reality TV shows against what we know as licensed psychologists about the reality out here, off of our TVs. We hope you'll join us as we attempt to reality test. That's it. Thanks, y'all. Now check out our campy theme song.
Are you feeling stressed? Your head's all messed? Well, let's forget all the rest. Fuck it, we're blessed. Cause it's time to talk reality test. Come with us. Let's reality test.
Welcome to Reality Test. I'm Dr. Ray.
And I'm Dr. Kay. Feel free to check in, take a seat, sit wherever you like, in fact, because we're heading on back down to talking about, which I don't know if it's down, wherever they are, for Ultimatum, Queer Love, Season 2, Part 2. So episode 6 to 10. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Welcome back. It's been a wild ride with these ladies and potentially non-binary folks too. We don't actually know for sure everyone's pronouns. That might be a growth edge for the show.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too.
Yeah, because it seems like Kyle maybe is non-binary.
I was going to blow my nose quickly, but this actually came up with one of my clients, or one of the clients I work with and have worked with for quite a long time, almost 10 years, in fact. And they and I were having a whole conversation about this. They having not watched, actually, I think they just listened, but I think they listened to our episode I know they listened to it. They listened to our episode, which was awesome. And then they shared with me about it. And I thought this was just such an important point that, ultimately, we didn't use they pronouns we didn't say they for Kyle, but we did say that that Kyle seems more non-binary than the other people do, which is true. They do seem that way, but that's in presentation. And also because, like you mentioned too, they were excited about fiance being gender non-binary as a term. And so then that got the client that was in my work and I talking about this idea of gender expression being something that is more akin to something like symbolic race, where symbolic race is where we talk a lot about how racial identity is what the person is both based on real or whatever genetic or DNA background, but then also based on how they identify. So they might identify more in one way than the other based on a trauma with one part of the family, blah, blah, blah. So, or they might identify as multiracial, but their brother doesn't, whatever. So there's that piece of it, which is the most important part. But there's also something called symbolic race, which is how society thinks your race is. What does society think you are when they look at you? And oftentimes there's ambiguous is one example. Or some people look black, but actually have more percentage of a different race or whatever. So there's that kind of a symbolic race piece, which is important because of colorism. And so the way that people treat you based on how light skinned you are is a big factor in the prejudice against your oppression and marginalization. So it is still important to think about symbolic race, even though that's only one small piece of the puzzle, really, when you think about how big of a puzzle there is. So then we were thinking about that in terms of gender expression too. I was that reminds me of symbolic race because with gender expression, there are differences in how people are treated based on how they present. Kyle does present somewhat gender neutrally or gender non-binary, but doesn't mean that they identify as such. Which then also brought me to this point, which goes back to your original point, which is that I also get skeptical about this at Netflix shows because there's always a part of me that's does this person feel like they would use they pronouns if they felt like Netflix would handle it sensitively? Or do they feel safe even telling Netflix they use they pronouns? So it's what are the boundaries of what Netflix is able to handle in terms of some things like that and gender diversity, gender identity, that would make me feel I'm always a little bit, I would never assume that they identify or use they pronouns, but it does make me wonder if we're seeing only part of the picture. Maybe also because Kyle has family that doesn't know. And so then Kyle doesn't want to disclose at that big of a level or whatever, or thinking about future jobs or whatever it might be. So I just always get a little skeptical of that. So they maybe do use they pronouns, even though they didn't on the show, but we don't know that for sure.
Right.
Nor would we say we didn't know.
For example, if my primary care office doesn't ask about my sexual orientation, I might not tell them that I'm bisexual. I might. They might figure it out anyway, but they might not, right? And it's the questions that also, whether or not someone asks me that question tells me some things about them and how they see my health, how they see me as a person. And so maybe if Kyle's getting weird vibes from Netflix about some of their identities, then maybe they're more or less likely to disclose.
Yeah.
That's such a cool client, or that's such a cool conversation you had with your client. I love that.
Yeah,
thank you for sharing.
That too. Also a cool client for sure. Very cool client, very cool conversation. It was really nice. Yeah. I'm loving that, be able to have that dialogue, in part because our other listeners, which thank you also very much, but don't really give us very much feedback. So we don't really always know like how things are landing. Or in that moment, I felt like I had made a mistake by not saying, like, this is just how they appear, not, and I hadn't said that they are non-binary, but I said they seem more so, but in a way that I was talking about presentation, but I didn't make that super explicit. So that's really helpful, because that's feedback for me to be able to say, I apologize also to Kyle if I misrepresented how they appear, even in terms of how they feel. And I think I maybe even said it about the two of them, because the two of them sort of collectively seem like more critical of the binary to me, as like their views, their viewpoints, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything about how they identify, which is a great point. So I loved it. It was a great conversation. Really helped me with thinking about some of those pieces that I get really used to talking about presentation because of symbolic race being a concept. It made me realize it sort of has gotten me sort of like more ironically kind of like looser in terms of thinking about how people present, because that's a huge part of the queer theory and gender diversity dialogue, is not making assumptions, not being presumptuous about people's gender based on how they appear, or their sexual identity based on how they appear, or their racial identity based on how they appear. So it's sort of like I've gone so far in that direction that I've come back around, It's like, so it was a good reminder to sort of like, being even clearer when I'm saying, like, I assume we're all on that page. We all know that. And so we're back around it thinking about just what is their presentation, gender expression. So I should be explicit about it in this context for sure.
And I'm sorry too, because I was doing the exact same thing. So I appreciate your client bringing that up. And
I don't know. You were delayed. You said this. No, sorry. Yeah, I just jumped in because I couldn't handle you taking anything on deck, because you also did say that you were like, at least Kyle, because Kyle brought up the fiance being a good gender neutral term, and so I think you were really attending to the fact that I was lumping together Bridget and Kyle too, which I think was a great point. So I don't know. We're all in this together, and we're all just doing our best, and I appreciated being able to talk about with a client with whom I work, and then therefore with you, and therefore with anyone wanting to listen to this part of our conversation, because gender expression and gender identity are important. I also would mention that I like sort of flippantly related to, God damn it, Pilar, to Pilar's race as Asian. And Pilar is Asian. And I had like, I don't know if I looked it up or if I like really did hear in the first conversation. I could have sworn she brought it up in one of the early conversations during dating, but I was like so certain, so it just like came out of my mouth. But like I had the memory, and I had written in my notes for the dating scene, Asian families, thinking about like difficulty disclosing. So I don't know. In either case, I couldn't remember the exact data point. So I should have made sure I knew that from some data point before I just like blew into that conversation. But talking about symbolic race, if it was just that would have been bad. But it wasn't. There was a data point. I just don't know where it came from. Either I looked it up or it was in the thing. But there's another good reminder. It's like we are also there. Like whether it's about race, gender identity, sexual identity, these kinds of pieces are important when we're talking about some of these shows, regardless of whether they're about queer identity. But I would say more important when it comes to queer identity. And why is that? Like it shows a lot about actually marginalization and oppression, that it becomes more important to talk about in queer media, because there's more expansiveness, but also more prejudice and oppression of different identities in different ways. Just going to go on a little bit of a diatribe there. Welcome back. I'll get stand off my soapbox.
I love when you get on your soapbox. It is a great soapbox to be on.
Thank you so much. As much I try. I definitely really appreciate that these are the conversations we're having. Like that makes me really happy. And I don't know that that's one of the things that's really like highlighted in a lot of other podcasts about reality TV. So I like that can be a draw, ideally, of ours. Would be for me.
Yeah. The idea of symbolic gender, I really like that as a way of saying that. So you and your client co-created something really cool.
I know. And I kept saying that to them too. I was like, I haven't heard this, but like, that's what it makes me think of. And I also was thinking about how, like, why I wouldn't bring that up in the other context is because I wouldn't want to co-opt a racial conversation to either be about gender or a racial term to become a gender term. But I think I was thinking about how minority stress over time got expanded from sexual identity only to also gender identity and now to racial identity. And so maybe over time it can sort of become a little more fluid and also be applied. Because I agree, there's something about that is just not, it's just so relevant to this very pocket right here that I feel like it would be interesting. It would definitely have to be thinking about it with the author, who I think is Maria P.P. Root. She was the one who first at least introduced me to symbolic race. And so I would, want to be expanding on it with someone of color who also found it important, who's also, for example, a marginalized gender identity too. So yeah, I do think it's an interesting way to go. I kept being like, I haven't heard this, but like, this is a thing. And then I just confused them a little bit, but then eventually we're like, right, the point is the literature hasn't talked about this, but this is a thing that is like a parallel worth noting that exists in like a nuanced, not labeled way, untitled.
The closest I feel like the culture, I shouldn't say the culture like that. I think that's co-opted Black language too. The closest that I've heard the literature get to like addressing symbolic gender is like the whole AFAB, AMAB thing that's happening now, which I actually don't love. Like the first time I heard that, I didn't like it. And here is why I didn't like it. I didn't like it because it kind of centers someone's sex that they were assigned at birth. In a way that I find kind of weird. And I felt like it became this term that was like the hip new term. And I'm like, I don't love it. And I feel like doing that is not, I feel like symbolic gender is a little more maybe what people are trying to get at with that, but it does still feel sticky and messy because of passing privilege and stuff like that. I don't know. Yeah. There's a lot to this for sure.
Yeah, I really like that point because I've also felt sort of like about like I haven't adopted it myself as language I use. I have always felt a little bit like, ooh, maybe that's just not for me because it's not for my generation, or maybe it's more like, and I like how you put that. It centers biological sex in a way that we're trying to move away from. I think was the idea there. Right. So maybe there's a way if it's like we don't want to erase the importance of biological sex. That's fair, right? That's the part where it's sort of like maybe use both or something, but maybe putting it central is less appealing to me. Essentially, for sure, it is. To me, at the very least, I'm sure to many people. And to us, at the very least, I should say. But yeah, I think the other thing it's close to is gender expression. I really do think that that's part of it. Is like how does it present to be, or like thinking about Judith Butler's stuff on like present performative gender performativity. It's also like that too. We'll think of it. We're gonna tie something together over the years and figure out a theoretical concept for that combination of
more
things.
Noodling.
More noodling to be had.
As you love to say.
I do love to noodle. So. I really love this. I think we're like breaking new ground, as I mentioned. But I also, speaking of breaking new ground, would like to share with everyone that we have reached and now surpassed 100 episodes of our fine little humble podcast here. Come, reality test. Come with us. Let's reality test.
Retest.
100 times.
That
and now 100
in a while.
I know. You don't really listen to it's like because I make the videos, I hear it all the time, but I also, yeah, you're right. That's like when you don't, you're not doing that, you might not be hearing it as much. It's a delight. I will also say that we have now gotten to 101, but the reason we decided to talk about it now is because after this episode, we're going to take a wee break over the summer of August, that we're giving ourselves August as a summer month off. I think we were talking about 2 or 3 weeks off at least, but that would mean maybe the 3rd or 4th week of August would have an episode. So I'm thinking more like 4th week of August or beginning of September probably, which we hope you all take a little break for yourselves as well. Obviously, not just from us, but just from anything that's involving needing to podcast because you're commuting or something like that. August tends to be a good summer vacay, at least for psychologists. It's classically so. So take a little break and we'll come back. I'm going to be doing some things to think about like other kind of like not products so much as like marketing, not even that though. It's like other ways that we can help. So we were talking about, for example, applying, I had just brought up that I applied the central relational paradox to Huda from Love Island. And so thinking about like other things like that are of interest to people. And then things like that. But otherwise, we're just going to be taking a wee break. So we'll be back later, August, early September. I'm just repeating myself now. In the meantime, what a gift and what a true joy to have done this for 100 episodes with you, dear Dr. Ray, and with you all listeners. It has truly been a light during a really tough year of academic work and society.
Yes, this is so much fun. And I look forward to continuing to do this with you. And I hope y'all will put some money in our pockets because, we are doing this for free. So we would love, we love to do this. And we would love it even more if you paid us. Was that too crass?
So I mean, that's fair. It does make it more like sustainably lovable, like lovable long term,
Yes.
if we can, be able to sustain it financially. And I think that's a piece of where it's like, even though I did like slip up and say products, it is kind of a product thing too. It's like, what can we offer y'all on Spotify, not Spotify, JK, on Patreon that makes it appealing? It's not just the videos, the full length videos. That said, the full length videos are on patreon.com/realitytest. If you want to create an account with us, you can make a free account and see something. And then you can get a full account for $5 a month. Anybody, anytime, anywhere, you get $5 a month. You'll get a shout out on the pod and a free maybe year of membership, depending on if you're in this like a little raffle of just one, you'll probably get it. And then we will
Unless
also
you don't want to shout out. If you don't want to shout out,
yeah.
we don't have to give you. If that's hindering you, you don't. You do not have to get a shout out.
What a brilliant point.
However,
You don't have to have a
please
shout out.
specify. Yes.
Mhm.
If you want a shout out, don't say anything. If you're like, I really don't want one because you're shy or something, that's fine.
Yep. And you can use your username or you can use a name in some way. You're able to privately message us through that. And also, once you're a member, you can see our full videos, full length videos. And then also there are other products throughout the whole history of the feed there that you'll see, like videos that are informative. There's one called Dr.s Kay's Rant, Dr. K Rant, about Dorit and PK. So there's some fun things to be found there. And then that's the other thing that we'll all focus a little bit more on in August, is thinking about like how to use some of our more like expertise areas in terms of fueling some things that would be interesting and unique to have on our Patreon.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
That's all.
And we
All for that.
love y'all so much. We know we have some loyal listeners, and we're grateful for you. And yeah, I'm grateful to be able to do this with you, Dr. K. It's been really fun. And
it really has.
Yeah,
even if the friendship, our friendship is, yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go first. You go first, because mine might be different. You say yours.
Mine was, it's just nice to have a space to like put my energy in takes, because I watch so much reality TV, and it's just fun to talk about it with someone whose brain I respect so much. So yeah, it's been a joy.
That's really sweet. Yeah, I was going to say that their brain functions similarly. Like, we're both fast processors, and so we're sort of just like riffing off each other quickly about certain things. And I love that we've gotten to know each other so much through this. It's been, even if your friendship was like the type of payment, then that is one that's worth it. It's been a joy and treasure and a pleasure. A joy, a treasure, and a pleasure, I say. And I also would note that I think you're right about using our brains. Like, we're watching these shows, and I often think to myself, wow, like, which is why this is an item in one of our things, is like, wow, I feel like everyone should be talking about this, because it's like wild how certain things are so egregiously XYZ. So it's nice to be able to have a place that we can talk about it, even if it's without people listening. But you're right that we do have some loyal listeners. For example, we seem to have always had people calling or like listening from Paso Robles in California. So thank you to that faction of friends. What a delight. And then we also have a bunch of different countries represented through this and YouTube, through Spotify and YouTube, so, and Apple or whatever. Thank you so much for that. So we are glad to be continuing down this road with you in the next 100 episodes. And today for the 101st, we were just going to do a quick abbreviated check-in of sort of like, since this is part 2 for this segment of sorts, of like, hey, how you doing? What's up, Dr. Ray? Instead of what's on your heart and mind.
How I'm doing, what's up? Do want to acknowledge there's been a lot of news this week. I just remembered we had mentioned this. So for my check-in, I'm going to talk about Janae and Kenny and that breakup that we.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah.
I first of all, he fucking sucks, and I have to say that you and I called this shit.
Yeah.
You could just tell he doesn't fucking like her. And apparently, unfortunately, she found some racist texts, and he was saying he was just with her for clout, which anyone could see that was true, but it sucks that she had to see it that way. And that,
do you think she could tell?
I don't think so.
I don't either.
So, and it seems like maybe friends were skeptical at first, but kind of got on board, or I don't know. It seems like everyone just kind of got on board with his bullshit. It just sucks.
A lot of fans did. A lot of her fans did eventually, for example, too. Like, got on board over time.
Yeah, and he got to quit his job and become an influencer. Good luck sustaining that, my friend.
I know. He kind of just got canceled, dude.
Yeah.
Wow.
As he
it's
should,
so sad. Yeah, really, as he should. And so sad for John A.
And it's just putting my feelers out for like Love Island now has this format where there's like the girl gang that everyone falls in love with. And the guys, as we saw with Amaya, seem to like to benefit from that. And so it makes me a little nervous. Like, yeah, what's going to happen there in the future, how this is going to play out, and how we should watch for guys who are glomming themselves onto these women for clout.
Barnacles.
I don't want
Barnacles.
Yes, barnacles. Barnacles that they can do better from. But
yeah, barnacle boys. And then, did you say? So you're referring to Amaya and Brian? Did I hear that they also broke up?
Yes, which I'm actually glad about. I would rather that than them to drag it out for a year or something.
Yeah, even a month was what I sort of guessed, and it's not even that. I mean, we also called that one out. Like, he just seemed to be a little bit annoyed by her, or like feel like better than her in some moments where it was like really clear just with his eyes. So I'm glad that they moved on too.
Yes, for the best. Thank you, Brian, for at least being genuine with, and not staying with someone who would have gotten you more likes, frankly, if she's not for you. But
and also for being kind enough to like stand up for her that one time. And I wasn't even the bigger thing. Like, I wish he had said, we say like mi amor, we say mi vida, but then I wish he had also said, and we also have a like we are stronger emotionally expressed in terms of emotional expression. Like, I wish he had also said that, because that was really the bigger piece of cultural too, and that never got brought up on the whole show. That's wild to me. Yeah. So although I like that he brought up some support of her, I wish he'd like taken that little extra step there. Would have been a big deal. So whatever. Anyway, critiquing after the fact, Monday morning armchair quarterbacking. So shit like that.
Good to do.
What other news?
We can grow.
Yes, we're all growing from that quarterbacking.
That's all. I think that's the main news that I saw. Yeah. But what else? What else was that? I feel like there was something else that I'm forgetting now. But oh well. Oh, Sydney Sweeney and her jeans, but that's not the Bravo verse. Have you heard this?
No.
Oh my God. It's like a whole fucking, look up this cringe ass American Eagle jeans commercial. People are saying it's like giving eugenics vibes. And then there's been like parodies of it. And then this was upsetting because I was fine with Sydney Sweeney. I think she's a good looking gal making her way in the world. But it turns out she is a registered Republican. So people found that after this. And so now Donald Trump has come out in support of Sydney Sweeney and her jeans commercial, which feels very concerning, honestly. Like, it's really kind of gross in a lot of ways. So now the president is stamping approval for what is now being perceived as a eugenics commercial. And it's just, it's getting weird and bad. I don't know. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this whole thing, because it's strange. Impact versus intent, all of that stuff. And sucks that she's a Republican. Damn. Didn't know that about her. Kind of a
separate issue. That sucks. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there's also a potential, did we know she was registered this year? Or is it standing over from previous years potentially?
I think it was 2024. So just last year.
Yeah, yikes. So I was say maybe she was and she just didn't have time or something. But then that's also not great. It shows a lot of privilege either way too. So yeah, that's a real bummer. That's a bummer either way. And I would say the commercial, that's something you have to do your research on. And then if it comes out and it turns out you made that mistake, come out and make a public apology or ask for it to be taken down or even if you are a Trump supporter or Republican, this is an area where it should be less polarized. This should be if it's about eugenics, it needs to come down. It needs to be talked about. It needs to be apologized for on her part. If it was impact versus intent, then she should talk about her intent behind it. Did she apologize? Am I missing something there?
Right. Nope.
No.
Not that I've seen.
That makes it so much worse.
Yeah.
Bummer.
Fucking sucks.
Boo.
I know.
I agree. I like Sydney Sweeney too, so that's a bummer.
I think that's the main three that I've had, but I feel like there's something else in my mind, but I'm forgetting it.
Wasn't she in White Lotus, the first season maybe or something? Wasn't she the sister? So she counts for our universe.
Yeah, and she was funny in it. She was the mean girl liberal reading Kant or something, by the pool.
Yes.
It was funny. Her whole shtick was funny. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, I liked it.
Or no, she was reading Nietzsche, wasn't she? I think
Oh
she was
yeah,
reading
Nietzsche,
Nietzsche,
yeah.
like something
Yeah.
just so college. It was,
Dark
yeah.
philosophy, yeah.
Yes.
Did
Love
did
that
she
for you, Sydney Sweeney.
Yeah, exactly. So edgy. So edgy, smart, intellectual of you. The other thing I was gonna say was that, like, oh yeah, it's surprising she was in such a liberal. Although I guess that's the point of White Lotus, kind of makes fun of liberals, but she was in such a liberal show for somebody who's not potentially. I guess she could be liberal-ish within the Republican area, but no.
If you vote for Trump, in my opinion, that's just a different animal. But
I agree.
yeah.
Good to know. Good news. Those are all good things. And I'm so glad you brought that up because I totally forgot that I said we'd come back to that about Kenny and Janae and how sad and distressing that is. Did you see?
Sucks.
Are you watching the After the Sunset? What the fuck is it called? Are you watching that other one,
Yeah.
After the Villa?
I am. I haven't seen the most recent. It's not that good, but I'm trying.
No. Yeah. I will say I think the most recent was the best one so far. Still wasn't great, but it had some bits and bobs in it where I was like, this is the kind of shit I do actually want to see. Like, you can tell every scene, you're sort of wondering, like, why did they think this is what we want to see from them? You know, like, that's my thoughts. Like, every time I'm like, why this or what that? And most of the time you're like, right, like Aaron and Connor are friends because no one wants to be friends with them. So, like, now they're friends so that they can be on the show, like, stuff like that. But there have been some moments, so those make it really hard to get into. I find it very artificial and brutal because of that. But this last episode, like, we saw Aaron and Kayla like actually reconnect in like a really kind of touching, weird way. And then we saw the scene between Kenny and Janae where they're answering questions live, where they're all questions about what Kenny knows about Janae. And he even chose that bracket of questions. Like, he said, yes, let's do that one, and didn't know most of it. It was so embarrassing and awful to watch. And she even says, like, why am I getting pissed right now? Like, this is, you know, at the end of it, like, because he sucks and he doesn't know you.
I did see that episode, and I agree. I thought the Kayla Aaron stuff was interesting, and the Kenny, but yeah, I thought for some reason there was another one since then.
There might
maybe
be.
I am caught up.
One comes out tonight. I think one comes out tonight, right? Isn't it Mondays? I don't know.
I have no idea. Probably.
Yeah, maybe that's why though. So then that makes sense. Yeah, we haven't seen the more recent one, but yeah, that was a good episode, right? I actually felt like that one was pretty good. I thought that was better than the other one. At least they showed us things that like actually moved us along a little bit in terms of relationship. It's funny. It came out the same week that they broke up.
Yeah. Maybe who knows? Well, no, I don't think it was a planned breakup. It seems like it was kind of messy, but it's good timing.
But it could have been a planned scene. Yeah, it could have been a planned scene because that could have happened anytime, and they plucked it and put it in that week. Yeah. Producer antics. We see you. Which really is a good segue too. My check-in is that we had the 100 episodes, so we can use that as and we shall foray now into our awards. And I will say again to anybody who hasn't heard us before, our awards are 8 awards that ask questions about it's like superlatives, who was the most cringe, but each of the awards have the word test in it because we are reality tests after all. So you'll see things like protest this mess or doing the most test, etc. Stick around, hear out who our awardees are going to be. Today we're just doing ones from the second half of Ultimatum Queer Love Season 2. And quick note, we're not your therapist, other than my one client shout out. We're not your therapist, and we're not the therapist of those on the show. So we might seem like we have an idea about somebody's mental health, but we really have no clue. We're just looking around at some ideas and so forth, noodling on them. So that'll do. With that in mind, tell me, to your Dr. Ray, whom on Queer Love Season 2 did you give Protest This Mess award to? This is who you think is doing something obnoxious. Yeah. This is the one where it's like the drunkest, saddest, or most obnoxious moment or castmate.
So for me, I talked about this a little bit last week, but like Mel lying to Marie that they had sex was such a lie. And then she did the whole thing where she was like, it's a lie of admission. No, it wasn't. Y'all were coming, and no one I know comes from making out. And if they are, like, good for you. That's awesome. Yeah. No shame in your game, but I wouldn't say it's a common experience. So that's sex, in my opinion. Yeah. And so Mel was very unfair to Marie, and kind of made it was kind of just heartbreaking to see. The other thing that I said last week was the Kyle and Pilar thing, where Kyle was kind of making it seem like Pilar kissed her in a way that was non-consensual. And it just was totally misrepresenting what happened and misrepresenting all of the things that had happened before that and leaving out so much context. And I think Pilar then called her on that. And I think Kyle changed her tune, which I'm glad for, because that would have been really unfair, in my opinion.
Totally agree. Really, really good ones. And I think both of them also like tie into the second part of the show because they also have to do with the reunion. So like they both come back as well and we talk about it more, particularly the one, although also with Kyle in the second part, she talks to Bridget about it too, which is actually pretty interesting how that conversation goes. But I was going to say, so the funniest thing is, and leave it to our 100th episode, area. This will be the first time ever we both had the exact same one for protest this mess. I also had Mel, specifically Mel straight lying to Marie. That's the first sentence. And it says, I don't care who you are. That was a lie. Even if Mel doesn't qualify what was happening as sex, she absolutely knew that that's what Maria was referring to. I mean, Marie. I caught you, Maria. That's what Maria was referring to, and that Marie would want to know that. Of course she knows that. So that therefore means that you are lying. It doesn't matter what is happening because you didn't want it to be disruptive to what's going on. So even as, for example, Marie said to her, don't make me look like a fool. Like, don't make me regret this when I watch this back. So I guess we learned in that moment that Mel planned to like break up with Marie before the next season came out, because what else are you going to do? You have to know that she's going to be like, dude, the one thing I asked you not to do. So sure enough, by the reunion, they are broken up because everyone here has seen the second half, no. By the reunion, they are broken up. And sure enough, like the other piece that's tough that I protest about Mel straight lied to her. But also, did you notice how little language Mel uses? They just like no, or like nod or whatever. And so the same thing kind of comes up in the reunion where they just don't say anything. If they can help it.
I found that to be a very frustrating episode, that reunion. I felt that nothing got resolved. It was like the Blue Balls reunion of the century. Like, I just didn't feel, that's probably a weird way to say it, speaking of sex, but it was like, I wanted people to get into shit, and it didn't seem like they were, which maybe, and again, like you brought up last week, maybe if there was like a queer host, you didn't say this in particular, but you brought up how it would be nice if this show had a queer host. And I agree, but maybe someone in the community in some way would be able to take folks to task a little more than that host was. Yeah,
great point. These are one of those moments where it's like, for I forget her name, but the host, for her sitting there like sort of calling her out on that behavior make her feel uncomfortable. Like people could say that that's just how it works with lesbians sometimes. One talks about the other, she doesn't know what the dynamics are that she could get called out for, so she might be imagining a bunch that wouldn't really actually happen, and so therefore she like kind of I don't want to say chickens out, but like sort of like ends up trying to protect herself, which makes sense too. But it's not good for the show. It's not good for what we want to see with the show. It's not what we're trying to look for, like some real, people held to task, held to accountability, held accountable, so that we can all learn from it better.
And I saw one thing that said like, look at these women not making each other the villain in the reunion. And it's like, that's great. We don't want to villainize people, but we want to, like, in not going places, in my opinion, it makes the show complicit in the behaviors that happen that were not okay, that warranted further discussion. So I think, yes, good to not villainize people, but there's like a middle ground there of like some things needed to be said and some apologies needed to happen, some true apologies and some genuine conversations. And I feel like the only one who came to play was Marie. And then everyone else was just not. And it was
because Marita too, kind of like Marita too, but Marita was just like vitriolic. Where is that coming from? What is happening? Like that wasn't really playing. That was like overplaying your hand kind of or something. But yeah, Marie really came to play. I totally agree. I love that.
Marita was like, I don't care that your grandmother is dead, which it's not funny. That's not at all. But it was just such a weird out of pocket thing to say. It was like, what the fuck?
Fucking out of pocket. So out of pocket. Like, sit the fuck down, Marita. Like, oh my God.
Right.
That is so hurtful and horrifying. Yeah. Wow, so true. But yeah, I totally agree. There's a difference between, what that reminds me of is our conversation in regards to Love Island at the end there from the episode that we titled um, something, and cancel culture, cancel culture, public apologies, yada, yada. So we talked about that because we talked about how cancel culture at its most extreme is very unhelpful and shaming and blaming and totally actually can be very harmful. But then no cancel culture is also the reality we lived before cancel culture was developed by Me Too movement and Black Lives Matter, which meant that people weren't being held accountable at all when they would do some really fucked up things. And so having somewhere in the middle where we can hold each other accountable for our behaviors, not attack the people as people, but the behaviors, so we can all learn from it and move on, that is the ideal place we could go, which is just like what you're saying here too. They didn't need to be vitriolic to each other. Like I think that's really how Marita shows, right? Like Marita shows the extreme that we don't want either. We don't want Mel's lack of conversation completely. We don't want Marita's vitriolic stuff, but we want like a Marie. We want someone who's like ready to go, ready to talk about it, ready to own things, ready to call others out on things. I don't think she owned a whole lot, but she seemed like if she needed to, she might have, but she was at least in the conversation and creating some good, juicy combos.
She was present and like ready to go. She was not where I think everyone else was maybe thinking about their image or something. So
exactly. Good ones. Go us. We had a good one there.
Go us. Yay us. But so what about doing the MosTEST? Who was the most cringe or embarrassing this week or this season?
This season, I gave it to so in the second half, I gave it to Dana and Megan's whole fight, which was like major cringe. So both the way that both of them talked about it to other people and those people talked about it to each other and like that was messy. But the real part was from the second half because it was when, for example, Megan says, "I can't believe I was going to marry you," with such like disdain and contempt. So we definitely knew right then they were not destined for greatness. Like this is going nowhere. The way that she said that was so gross and like under your skin, like ripping, not even just like crawling. Like it just was really bad. And I also felt like Megan going so fast against Haley was also really off-putting and cringy. So I felt like Megan really won for me the like doing the most test for the second half because I really liked Megan too. I liked her a lot in the first half of it. I really liked parts of her in the second half, but most of it was just really like cringe, like pretty awful, mean stuff being said and just like going against her word. And yeah, so not for me.
Yeah, and turning on Haley when it suited her. She seems like a very kind of, Dana, I think even said it at one point. She's like, once you're certain about something, you're certain. And it seemed like that played out in their dynamic where she changed her mind and then it was like full steam ahead. It's like, well, yeah, you got to slow down, girl.
Yeah. Right. Like when Dana called and said what she said. I mean, that was the other thing is like, you could tell that what Dana said the conversation was like wasn't what it was like. You could tell that it wasn't that Megan was just like, I'm leaving you forever, goodbye. That clearly Dana said some things that were like not the right way to go about that. And it was helpful during the reunion when Megan brought up, like, she's never said that to me. It's not like she says that to me when she's upset. Like, she's never said that. So I had no idea. I thought she really meant like goodbye. So I get that. I think that's an important part of context that was left out intentionally. And then I also think, Megan left some things to be desired too. But yeah, even that part was just really awful. Like what she was saying was said and then wasn't said. And then, yeah, that was really tough. And it just reminded me so much of the attachment style stuff that's important. But then you were saying something else, which I was just picking up on and then immediately forgot. So fuck it. But yeah, that's a great one.
Me too.
No, it was mine.
That was a great one. It was very good. You deserve all the flowers.
Thank you so much. Thank you for my flowers. Thank you, self, as well. That's great. Thank you. Your turn. So what was doing the most test? Yeah.
Mine is a little more silly. It was AJ continuing to talk about herself in the third person. Yeah. It's just, it's always so silly. And then it was called out and then she did it again. And I was like, I'm sure she'll stop. Yeah, I'm sure she'll stop doing that after this. It's a funny trait when people have that trait. And yeah, it was just a little cringe. And like I say that in a loving way. I think AJ seems like a really nice person who gets really excited.
Yeah, totally. And like really passionate in a way that's contagious. I would also say there was a part of me that was wondering like how much of that might be related to the potential for a transition. Like I'm not saying that AJ is transitioning or is gender non-binary. But if they had been playing with the idea, or if they changed their name, like, did they always go by AJ? My guess would be probably not, but they might have. And so there might be a way that, like, the third personing that they're doing to themselves is actually, like, sort of a product of the process of sort of seeing themselves as someone other than how they grew up, because they don't feel like they are that person. And so it's sort of like restoring who AJ is. And so say they're in therapy with somebody who's saying, like, so tell me who AJ is. Like, what does AJ do? Like, what does AJ do? That could sort of form as a result of that, which I think is cool.
Oh, I like that. That's kind of sweet.
Yeah, it'd be a cool outcome. I mean, it's very cute what she does anyway, but that would be cool if that's what it's an outcome of for her sake. And maybe they're fake, but we don't know. Yeah. Netflix isn't telling us their pronouns. We don't know.
Sure aren't.
Sure aren't telling us. Sure aren't. Okay, so now, by the way, I remember what I was going to say, which was that what you was drawing off your point at the end about how then Megan, like, she says a thing and then she goes really hard. She, like, makes a decision and then goes hard in that direction. And so I was going to say, right, like, first it was when Dana called her and was like, forget you, I'm done with you. But then Megan was like, fine, goodbye. Now I'm going to go hard in with Haley. Then they went hard in with Haley. And then when they were like, yeah, maybe we'll go together, they were like, hard in on that. We both love each other. We love each other. They're that far in. Then they break up and she's back with Dana. And then as soon as she's like really awful to Dana. But then as soon as they make the decision to stay together, she's like all the way on that. Like, is that right? Is that what you're talking about? She like goes hard on no matter what decision she makes. Yeah. So true.
And then just totally shuts down Haley without considering, without ever, I think, slowing down to consider her role in these situations, what she had said previously. It's just like there is a single-mindedness there that's interesting.
Yeah, so much so that she forgot that she complained about the very same behavior that Dana did to her. She then did to Haley of ignoring her when they saw each other out because she went so hard in that direction. Yeah. Forgot that was the complaint she had.
Awful.
Yeah. Okay. So our next one is testing 1, 2, 3. So this is the best production ad or best or worst production antic. Yeah, producer antic.
Okay, so I already alluded to this one. So when they were giving the orgasm noises of Dana and Mel, I so appreciated that because then we knew there was more that was going on than what was being communicated. So I actually think that was huge to moving forward the story. Like, it is clear from that they were not being truthful.
Right.
So I was glad that they showed that.
Oh, good. Okay, cool. Because it's interesting too, because I sort of took it as like moaning, like enjoying something. I didn't even really think about it as like orgasming, but it makes sense too. Like I don't think I even got the full. I wasn't focused in that moment. I remember later thinking back because I remembered right after it happened, I was like, wow, someone's having sex, and then being like, who had sex? Not like, was that sex in the moment? So I didn't really focus in on what the sounds were until after, or I still haven't till this day, till now.
Yeah,
but yeah,
maybe they weren't. Maybe they were just the moaning. But I thought maybe I'm misremembering. I thought I heard orgasm sounds, but
definitely could be right. You definitely could be right. And the way it was talked about was like people were like pretty clear that was sex. And like to me, it's the same. Like even if it were just moaning from during the act of whatever act they were doing, that still to me would be sex because that's where we're at with what we're doing here. Like even if you think about like digital sex or like oral sex, like there are other forms of sex that can happen that we can still consider sex regardless of gender identity or like sexual identity in a relationship. So I think there's definitely something happening there for sure. But I also agree it definitely could have been that they were having, I just didn't pay attention enough to know if it was this or that. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. Because if they were orgasming, then fucking the game over. Game all the way over. That was definitely unquestionable in my mind. Unquestionable. Okay, that's simple. I like that as well then. For me, the worst producer antic is really just the premise of the whole fucking show. You know what I mean? Like I felt like the show, even in part 2, if I were to just focus on part 2, it seems like a show really only works if the players have come knowing that they have a conclusion in mind. Like, okay, we're going to go on here to get engaged and we'll just like go on there to get famous. And if they're not doing it for that reason, then this is a nightmare because then they're going to find out they hate each other because of just the way the show works, which is like not the way it should work. And also it even says that in the beginning, as I've mentioned, that you're not supposed to do ultimatums if you want a relationship to work. So it just automatically shows that's not what it's about, which then to me is like, okay, so what is it about? It's about getting famous. That's it. You know what I mean? So if that's the case too, like, then I don't know. Then I think it like speaks to the fact this premise doesn't work. So I think the way that they did it for me was like the way AJ and Britt did it. I think that they decided they were going to get engaged when they came on the show and that AJ already knew she was going to say yes. or that she was going to end up proposing to Britt, but that they were going to use the show to get to the yes, because AJ actually put up very little argument at the end. And even at the beginning, AJ's reason for it was like, I just have seen people love each other so deeply, and I want to make sure I do it right because it matters so much. Like, oh, it just matters so much. Got it. Like, that's a good reason to get engaged to a woman who clearly loves the shit out of you, and vice versa. Yeah. So I really felt like, also the way Britt totally trusted her the whole time, I felt like they probably just came into it knowing, and they did it. And I think that's great. I think they did it well. It was nice. So if you really need an ultimatum, if you really feel that an ultimatum is what you need to shake things up, it will take you in any direction that it's not staying together. Like, it's just not going to do that, the way that these shows have been showing up for that. So I just really think that the show is not for that reason, and that's why it's kind of bullshit antic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wish they would do like queer Love is Blind as opposed to this. Because this just seems like something that is so harmful to people. Like, I didn't like the OG Ultimatum. I liked this. I watched it. Don't get me wrong. I watched the shit out of it and had fun. But yeah, you're right. It's just the premise doesn't quite work. It doesn't quite make sense why they would do this to themselves. And it seems not good for these people's mental health in any way.
So true. It's just not good. And it's like sad. It's also sad. It's hard to watch. Like, I honestly felt really badly for not Marita, but Ashley. I felt really sad for her. Yeah. That was tough at the end. Aww. Yeah. Oh. Okay. That's it.
Oh, my turn. What are we on? Who are you holding accountable? We're reading their test results. Who do you think showed the most or least growth?
Yay! That was perfect. That's exactly what that award is. Sometimes you say it a little differently, and I'm like, kinda, but like, but this time you like nailed the fuck out of it.
Sorta.
Yeah, it's like kind of like that. Yeah. Yes. So that was awesome. Yeah, we are the ones holding them accountable. By reading their test results, and I read Ashley's, and I felt like she had some growth between the end of the show and when she came back with the engagement. Like, I'm getting the sense there's something there. Like 2 weeks before the proposal, I think. Maybe that's Love is Blind I'm thinking of, but I feel like in Love is Blind, they're like, we haven't talked in 3 weeks. How is this ever going to work? Like, shit happens between that and the actual engagement. So it's possible it's similar or not, or the actual wedding or not. But I feel like some time had passed because she was like, I really thought about it, and here's where I'm at. And I like thought about it even until this morning. And I'm glad that she decided to take it in a different way, because they just weren't meant for each other. They were the only couple that I was like, they just cannot be together. And then it turned out they were really not together. No, by the way, a lot of them cannot be together. But I think they're the only ones that I could tell they would know they cannot be together. I think that Mel and Marie and then Dana and Megan should not have gotten engaged. Like, nope, and nope, nope, nope. And they broke up. So, nope. How about you?
That is a great one. Yeah, I agree. I think there's some growth there. She seems to me like a really kind person. She just reminds me of, like, I don't know if she's from the Midwest, but she gives like quiet Midwest energy. I mean, some of us Midwesterners are very loud, but she reminds me that, like, she just seems like kind of a sweet person who's doing her best. Like, that's my kind of sense of her. Yeah. So
doing her best, exactly, and trying to be open about it as she goes. And I think she's just like a little less like into excitement or something. You know, she's not like excitement seeking, or she's not thrill seeking. She's just more like, let's do the fun thing and cuddle. Like, let's be here, which is very sweet. And she just needs to find someone who's in that same place as she is, and probably grow up a little bit and feel confident in herself a little bit more. But when she gets there, she's going to be a delightful partner. And she definitely, I agree, a total sweetheart. I agree, Midwesterners, well put. Yeah.
Marita, they just never quite seemed right for each other, even in terms of chemistry. Like, some people, you're like, I can see why these two like each other. With them, I'm like, I don't quite feel like either of you is what the other is seeking. So, it didn't quite hang together for me. But that's okay. Doesn't have to. They figured it out themselves.
Yeah, exactly. They knew, which is what matters, because they could actually do something about it, unlike us. So that's really good. But to your point too, it's like they didn't even know who the other person was at all, let alone like that person wasn't the one for them. It's almost like, because the way that fits with what you're saying is like, it's almost like they saw each other as the person they wanted them to be, but like not as who they were. Because I felt like they were not quite jiving on that level. I totally agree.
What's tricky about them is they're both likable people, and they probably like that they're both likable, but they weren't the right sort of likable for each other.
Yeah.
It didn't seem to be. But
no.
Yeah.
But they learned from it. They learned from that relationship, and that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. So I am going with our friend Mel. Least accountable. It felt like at the reunion, she did not take accountability for what she did to Marie at all, and frankly wasn't held to task in any way where she'd have to. Um, I also felt this way about Megan. Like it was like a little, oh, look how happy Dana and I are. Look at it. Like it was kind of like, look over here so you don't have to look over here. But it's like you are harmful to Haley. I mean, I really like her. And if she hadn't been mean to Haley, if she said, look, Haley, like I know this is complicated. You're back with your person too. I do love you, and I'm back with Dana, and if she had gone about it that way, totally different. The way she went about it was so like, whoa, it's just so unfair. And I worry about the occasional masked woman internalizing, right, traditional gender roles to the point where they bulldoze women. It sucks. Bulldoze other women.
Totally agree. Which both Mel and Megan fell victim to a little bit in terms of that. Like, and Mel's way of bulldozing was interesting too. It was a little bit more like sedentary in some moments, and in other moments, like with Megan, like seeing the two of them talking was also interesting. So she did bulldoze Megan quite a bit during that conversation, which was curious as well.
Yeah, like big dogged her or something, or tried to.
Yeah, exactly. Because they're just friends or whatever. Not really even friends, but yeah. Yeah, that's a great one. Really good one. I totally agree. That's really good. And I do think Dana too. Like I think Dana also had not grown a whole lot by the end of it, but I think she could through learning about herself from the show. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. She seems, because she was so overtly villainized, like I would say she got maybe, I don't actually know who got the most hate, but she was maybe involved in the most amount of drama and is more open about the fact that she's messy. So she seemed more open to like wanting to work on herself, where I didn't necessarily see that for Megan or Mel.
No, I totally agree. Yeah, great point. When she came back from reunion. Yeah, great point. She really seemed open to that. Wow, that's another good one then, really, because she had like some growth. Dana did. At least she was open to growing. Yeah, by reunion.
Yeah, sorry, Dana. I appreciate your openness to growth.
Yes, we like a starting point. She looked very different, and she was pretty put together and respectful about time on the air. I mean, she was really, I felt different. Felt she was different. All right, nice. So then this next one's my favorite, my Pride and Glory Testosterone Award. Yeah, this is our most patriarchal, or most white supremacist, or most misogynist, and or most heterosexist award. Thus, any of these things will work. The reason it was really written as testosterone is because when it was just most patriarchal, the idea was that somebody could bone themselves with their testosterone by making a decision that was historically, classically male norms, based on male norms, and therefore testosterone bones themselves. So with that in mind, who got your testosterone award this week? This half of show.
So this was, I talked about this a little last week too. I really want you to like advice about how one can improve themselves. I think Mel did it to Marie, and I feel like Megan and even AJ maybe did versions of it, I think. So it's like, let's not tell other women with mental health issues or insecurities how we want them to improve. That is so patriarchal and weird, and I don't like it. And so just don't. Like, it's one thing to say like, oh, this is what I really like about you, and I hope you will, I don't even know, just to acknowledge that, man, like, I wish you could see yourself the way I see you or something, or like I just see
Something. Yeah.
so much amazingness as opposed to the prescriptive, you need to do this to be better. Especially coming from, in the case of Mal and Marie, like it was like, oh, you're being sensitive, when she had very good reasons to be sensitive and to not be feeling great and to be feeling insecure. And so, of course, Marie was pissed off at the reunion. Of fucking course.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, like, any of that argument, like, a woman, you're sensitive, or like over emotional, or too emotional, or like dramatic is the next, obviously, iteration of it, is so fucking damaging and misogynistic to be like, you have too many emotions. It's like, first of all, there are differences in emotional expression for many reasons, including, as we mentioned earlier, just in this episode, cultural differences, and folks who are Hispanic or Latino, Latinx, Latina. Even in that case, there might be a whole lot of reasons that folks are more emotionally expressive in one way or another. So like, telling somebody for any reason that they are is fucking fucked up. It's some sort of, implicit bias, when really, like, emotions are a really good source of information for us. So don't tell someone they're being too sensitive or too emotional, because that is damaging, and I'm not here for it. We're not being prescriptive, but don't do that. I will say, like, in addition, I think what you're saying, though, yeah, but don't do that. I'll do like the Ariana. Don't do that. Okay, but be nice to each other, but don't do that. But the other thing too is, like, I think that's a little bit different. I will say too, I appreciate your point. Like, can you instead focus on the good? Because the positive reinforcement we've seen in research is more effective. So being able to reward somebody or plus them after they do something that you like is way more effective than going after them for something you don't like. So look for the opposite behavior of what they're doing that you don't like, and plus that part of them, and then they'll do more of it. They'll know you like that, and they'll do that instead of the other. And then the other thing too is that I would mention, you could also, like, ask questions like, what do you think about this? Have you thought about that? Or like, without it being like, have you thought about therapy? Like, not that, but sort of saying, like, what are your thoughts about that? Like, wow, that reminds me of when I went to therapy and like just even a couple days ago when I was in therapy, or whatever. Have you ever done a therapy? Oh my gosh, I think you'd really like it. There's something like that versus like, oh my gosh, you need this or whatever. Go to trauma therapy, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So.
I love it. One. Yes. Being less prescriptive, I feel that's the main thing. It's so not collaborative, that way of talking to people. And especially when you're gaslighting them, it's just not cute. Like, it's not a good look to be like, I really want you to work on your emotions or whatever the fuck, when you're out here lying to them. And yeah, it's just not cool.
No, that's so bad. It's actually really well positioned as your statement, because I picked for my testosterone Mel's lying and treatment of Marie as being like grossly masculine kind of the world. Like, it's sort of like the this idea of like getting away with everything that men tend to have or whatever, that like our traditional male gender norms include, is sort of like being invincible or like untouchable, being able to get away with anything, having that sort of attitude or stance as their stance is like really frustrating. And sort of see Mel, like, because a lot of men do lie about it and get away with it, and a lot of men are seen as like okay for them to cheat, but not for a woman to cheat. Like, sports athletes, like, people just assume they're cheating. It's like, that's awful, So the way that Mel lied and just assumed I'll get away with it felt very like traditional male gender roles and like crummy testosterone.
The crummiest. Very well said. Well, to cleanse ourselves of all of that nonsense, what about the Bechdel test? So what was our most feminist, anti-racist, gay, etc. moment that we saw the second half of the season?
Fabulous. So I actually wanted to give this to Britt and Marita, because I felt like the way that Britt showed up for Marita, was really sweet, and like a really good, like, feminist sort of like, well, you can do this or you can look for this, but also she wasn't just like, you're right about everything. She like really I felt Britt showed Marita some really important things for like new ways to talk about herself and what she needed. So I felt like that was a neat thing to see, and then to see the fallout of it, like the what's the word, like consequence, but not the good thing. So like we got to see the effect of that on how she was with Ashley in the second half, and I really liked it.
They were a nice surprise pairing. I think they really like lifted each other up in a nice way. That's a great one.
Good. Yeah. What's yours?
So mine is, while I was talking shit about how the ambiguity of sex in the finale, they had that scene on it. I kind of thought was used to bolster Mel's argument, which I didn't like. I also feel like what's good about that is they acknowledge that sex is not just P and V, which I'm so sick of people saying that. Like, oh, we had sex. Do you mean penis and vagina? Like, no, there are so many different ways to define sex. And that's not what Mel was doing, in my opinion. But I liked that representation, and I liked that the show did that. And I think it'd be cool in a non-after school special kind of way if there was more like education of queerness. I think that would be nice.
Yeah, I totally agree. And speaking of the client with whom I work, they also brought this up as sort of like, and isn't that sort of interesting though, that like we only afford that to queer people kind of, as having that experience of this is what and what sex means. But then I was also remembering things like digital sex and oral sex. Like there is some nuance also to what sex means in hetero couples too. But there's something about that that is pretty well reserved for queer relationships. And so I think that probably comes from the fact there's more types of sex option in terms of options, because there has to have been more that proliferated as a result of like, you can't just do P and V always, you know? So like, what does that look like when there's more options or fewer options in some cases, and then more have to be created, whatever. So I kind of get that too. Yeah, that's great. I'm really glad that it came up as well. The second to last award is for they were the worst test of friends, they were the best test of friends. So the worst or best relationship or friendship moment or relationship for you?
I think that AJ was not a good friend to Marie. It seemed like early on there was a lot of mutual respect there, and I really loved seeing that. And I think what happened is once the coupledom happened, Brittany was struggling, and AJ, maybe rightly for her relationship, prioritized her relationship with Brittany. However, it was kind of a bait and switch for Marie, who thought she was getting this sort of great thing. And frankly, like got picked by the person who kind of had the most connection. So I think she was kind of like jacked up by that, or like
living
gassed,
high.
which yeah. And then I think the downfall from that was really not good for her mental health. And I don't think AJ was there for her the way maybe she could have been. So I felt sad about the way that friendship played out.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And like, really, I don't think AJ, I don't think AJ was there for Marie even as much as Brittany was for Rita, even though they were like a random pairing. Yeah, I totally agree. I think AJ really focused on Britt. But again, I have to say, like, that's part of why I felt like they came in there together. You know, they came in there hoping to stay together. I think she eventually was like, wait, I don't want to actually lose Brittany. Like, so I need to figure this out now. And so that's why they still talked in between too, is my guess. But that's funny because my bestest relationship was AJ and Brittany. I put them as like the cutest little lovebirds. I feel like they were like the real lovebirds of the story of the season. So that says a lot. It pairs perfectly with yours. So even our relationship had a good relationship with each other.
I love it. Yes, it's like exactly the best and the worst in one foul swoop.
Yep.
Well, lastly, what about the one I always forget about, which is the testimonial? So this is the best confessional or straight to camera moment.
Okay. I think so. I think actually mine is good as an adjunct to yours. So you do yours. We just happen to talk about ours. We usually don't talk about our awards ahead of time. But because mine like pairs nicely with yours, I think you should tell yours first. So then I'll tell mine.
Yes. So mine was AJ's testimonials. They were helpful for me in seeing that when I think she must just be a very present person, because it's easy to see her behavior as like gaming, like how she was like, oh, I think you could be really good for me, or you bring out this in AJ or whatever. It seemed like kind of a game. And I actually don't think it was. I think she's just like an excitable, like person who really connects with people. And I think her testimonials showed that, because she was consistently saying the same thing in her testimonials that she was to the people. So it wasn't, or at least close enough where it was like, she clearly is feeling this way right now, even if she wants to end up with Brittany at the end. So I found those testimonials helpful in kind of maybe understanding where she was coming from or how she relates to the world and people.
I totally agree with that. It's so true. Like, I really trusted AJ meant it because of how we were seeing AJ in testimonials. You're so right. And I felt like also they didn't get defensive when it was brought up at the table. I feel like they really stuck it out. Both AJ and Brittany were sort of like, nope, this is like how AJ is. Like, sucks to be you, kind of like. Because if you really pay attention, AJ never promised anything, really. They just were like, oh, I think in our thing we're going to do this. Like, they were dreaming into it with them, like fantasizing. Like with Marita, for example, like when we're together, but not like we're definitely choosing each other, hands down, here we go. So if she paid attention to that, she wouldn't feel as played, I think. Plus, Marita's a little bit younger in life experience, I think, or just traumatized at a young age, maybe being child star adjacent, maybe did that, but it just means that I think that they missed it a little bit. She missed it. So mine pairs because mine is the testimonial of Brittany, who is talking about AJ and talking about AJ's vulnerability and authenticity, and the fact that actually that's like how AJ is, and like that's how loving AJ is. And I think for Brittany to do that also spoke to how comfortable they were with each other. They'd be back together at the end, because I really think that Brittany had no problem backing AJ in terms of how he was, in terms of how AJ was, connecting with everybody, because Brittany still was like, ultimately, AJ's coming home to me too. But I'm happy to defend AJ because that really is how AJ is, which I really liked. I really like that relationship in general, but I liked how they both their testimonials went really well together. Cute.
Yeah. Oh, yay. We had a lot of pairings today.
Yeah.
What fun.
I loved it. It's really funny. Like, we really have. And not like, I think a couple things were based on last time, but very few. So I think that's cool. It just really speaks to the fact that we were having our own alignment between the two of us. Because we're the best test of friends at the time of 101 episodes coming to a wrap.
Yay. Yay.
Go team, go.
I love too that I'm like, oh, I can't wait to see what Dr. K thinks about this, or I'll have thoughts about where I think you'll go with things. And sometimes I'm right, and then sometimes I'm surprised, which is always fun.
Same. It's fun internalizing each other's voices, imagining what they would say. I love it. Yay. Oh, that's so nice. It reminds me of like working with a client, because it's once a week, just like our sessions are once a week that we record them and that they come out. And then over time, you start to connect with somebody, you can internalize their voice a little bit, imagine what they'd say in their absence. So the perfect time to test that with y'all, for y'all to test it with us and see if you can internalize their voices when you watch any reality TV over the next 2 weeks or so. When we come back, and we'll probably hit some bachelor party business up, bachelor time. I don't know. I was going to try to make a pun, but we'll just probably have a party about Bachelor a little bit when we come back, because I think there's a lot to say about Bachelor in Paradise, which is cool. Brand new show, basically.
Yeah, it's very different. It's kind of like, whoa, it's a little weird, but getting used to it.
I love that it's a producer from Summer House.
I did not know that. That's fun.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. It shows, I think, it's much cleaner, like hipper kind of vibe.
Jonathan's, I haven't watched recently, but he has gone down in my estimation. I really liked him before. I'm not really feeling that way at this juncture, unfortunately.
I know. I think he's too boring. I think he doesn't ask enough questions. And he isn't as romantic. He's not romantic enough.
No. It's a shame, but but we'll see. I haven't watched in a few weeks, so I'll have to get caught up before we start back up again.
Perfect. Yeah. So that's what we'll do in a few weeks. So come on back. And you, in the meantime, can find us on patreon.com/realitytest, capital R, capital T. You can also search it in the search bar on Reality Test at Reality Test. At patreon.com by searching the @ symbol Reality Test in our search bar. Otherwise, you won't find us for any weird reason. I don't know what it is. Then the other things you can do is find us on Instagram at Dr. K Pods, that's me, at Dr. Ray Pods, that's Dr. Ray. You can find us on TikTok at drdr.realitytv. You can find us on YouTube and Facebook at Reality Test Pod, all one word after the @ symbol for YouTube channel and different words for Facebook page. And then we also are on Gmail, so you can Gmail us at realitycheck, not test, but check podding, PODDING, at gmail.com. Come say hi, tell us some things, we'll talk to you about whatever, and create a good feedback loop. You can help give us feedback if you'd like, just like the client with whom I work, who was so kind to share the feedback that they did. So thank you all for that.
Thank you so much. Don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, and to throw a few bucks our way if you so choose. It would be nice. Please and thank you.
If you have the funds, exactly. And also tell all your friends in the meantime. And also tell them there's 101 episodes out and they have 3 weeks to catch up on it before we start recording again. Great time to catch up. So you actually, by the way, don't have access to all 101 because a number of them are in our archive. So you have to join Patreon to hear our archive anyway. So come hang out with us there. You can also buy access to the archive, and then you can also, instead of the whole membership, and you could also buy a specific video episode if you'd rather do that than joining as a member. So there's options for getting involved a little bit. Anyway, what a joy these 101 episodes have been. Much love to you all. Much love to dear Dr. Ray. And we will see you next session.
Much love.
Bye, friends.